friends. It's another round of Pub Theology. Welcome to another Wednesday night. I hope you're having a great evening. You can always check out our Pub Theologies online. Normally we're at the friendly spot Ice House, but now we're doing it online, and we're going to go in person here soon, but a few more Pub Theologies around the corner online while we fight through this pandemic. And it's a great show for tonight. I have some really good friends that I work with all the time on our show today. Again, you can watch all our Pub Theologies. Go back to our Facebook page or YouTube channel. Hey, if you want to have any questions tonight, we want you to get involved. So we invite you to ask your questions for Valerie or Morgan, our guests, in the comment section below. You can do that on your YouTube or Facebook account through Pub Theology. Make sure you're watching it on Pub Theology. If you want to comment and have interaction with us, you can go to Pub Theology SA on Facebook. So great to be with you. Another round of Pub Theology. Hey, I want to bring in some guests of mine. Morgan and Valerie, how are you?
Hi.
Good. So Morgan and Valerie. Valerie is one of the directors of homeless services at Christian Assistant Ministries. She's previously worked at Haven for Hope and Centro downtown. And now she's at Christian Assistant Ministries, which is CAM, C-A-M. And you can check them out at Christian Assistant Ministries. I think I might have spelled that wrong. Oh, no, we got it right. Christian Assistant Ministries.org. And you can learn about all they do. She can tell you a little bit about that in a second. And I'm with Morgan Handley, who's with our organization, Corazon San Antonio. She does street outreach. She also previously interned at Haven for Hope and Centro before she came to Corazon. And they both used to do full-time street outreach in downtown San Antonio. Now they have respective jobs with the respected organizations, but they still really do a lot of street outreach. And so we're going to talk about that. The city of San Antonio has really invested in street outreach to the homeless, trying to provide compassionate care to those who are on the street, by providing preventive services, case management, and anything they need to succeed getting off the streets in downtown San Antonio and across San Antonio. So we're going to have a discussion about that. And tonight's topic is called Humanizing Homelessness. And I don't know two better people that work with the homeless that humanize our street friends, our unhoused friends, more than Morgan and Valerie. You can actually check out an article that I wrote about them about over a year ago at the Essay Report. We'll post that online. And you can check out. And the one thing I'm fascinated with is the most important thing you can do to the homeless is know their names. And Morgan and Valerie know everybody's name in San Antonio that are living on the streets. They know their names. They know what they're about. And so they can build a personal relationship with them to succeed even more in that case management. So we're going to talk with them tonight. So first off, Valerie, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got involved in this work, and tell us what you do at Christian Assistant Ministries.
Sure. Hi, I'm Valerie with Christian Assistance Ministry. I'm also completely devoted and passionate about street outreach. Whether I was employed or not, it would just be my life. Besides being a single mother of two, literally street outreach and doing life with the unsheltered is my life. I've devoted my life to it and I love it, especially those struggling with mental illness. So I got involved with street outreach after working downtown for a law firm, actually just outreaching on my own, and Centro noticed my efforts and took me on board. And after they realized that I too at one time was homeless, and not only homeless, but overcame drug addiction and actually went through Haven for Hope, it was just kind of a no-brainer. They hired me and I did street outreach for them for a few years. And that's where I came into my soulmate of outreach, Morgan, and we just took it from there. And then I recently came over to CAM.
That's great. And tell us what CAM's all about.
CAM is I say hidden gem, because even as a street outreach worker, I passed by there every morning and had no clue of how amazing and anointed they are. So we are Christian Assistance Ministry, and we are a ministry that serves the sheltered and unsheltered. So in a nutshell, amongst the many services that we offer, we serve the sheltered to capacity if you're struggling with utilities, just emergency services. So like our our mission is to be the love of Christ to those in emergency situations in crisis, whether you're sheltered or unsheltered. So if someone pulls up to our facility and they're sheltered, we're going to offer them, the service that they need in an emergency crisis, like utility assistance, if they need birth certificates, emergency groceries, things like that. I came in as a new position as the director of homeless, serving the unsheltered. So those services expanded through COVID. Before it was kind of a balance of serving the sheltered over the unsheltered, but as COVID grew, the unsheltered population that we serve also grew. So that's where I came in to kind of manage those services that we offer that include things like, those immediate emergency needs like showers, clothing, food on a daily basis, whatever that emergency need is. We're kind of like the emergency room for the unsheltered and sheltered community. So if they're needing any deeper case management or anything beyond that, we're going to connect them to those services or those resources. I'm really, since I've been there, trying to engage, outreach workers like Morgan, of course, and other teams to give our unsheltered more case management to get them going in the right direction for more of a long-term solution. So that's there's a lot more to it, but.
No, that's great. And thanks for bearing with the sound. The sound might be a little off tonight because we don't have our studio, but those people watching can bear with us. Hey, also, one thing that I think that's interesting, and by the way, your executive director, Dawn White, says hello. How are you? Hi, Dawn. She's the executive director of Christian Assistant Ministries, and is with us tonight watching. Again, if you have any questions for Valerie and what Christian Ministry is all about, please ask that online in the comments, and we'll put them up on the screen in due time. So Morgan Handley, how are you?
I'm great.
Good. Morgan works at Corazon Ministries, is where I work for at Travis Park Church in downtown San Antonio, graduate of UTSA. Morgan, how did you get involved in this work and led you all the way to what you do now?
Yeah, it was an interesting path to getting here. I've had a large variety of different jobs, from waiting tables to selling timeshares to I got my real estate license when I turned 18, and I just never really found my niche or something that I would be happy doing. So I went back to school and majored in, got my undergrad degree in public administration. And I was fortunate enough to get an internship at Haven for Hope, which is what really introduced me to this population. Before that, honestly, when I went in for my interview for Haven, I was just going in for interview experience. I had no desire to work with the homeless population. I had all these preconceived notions about homelessness and what it looked like. And I just had no desire to do it. And I just went into it with a very closed off mind. And it wasn't until I got to Haven and saw the population and saw how incredible they were that I knew that that's exactly what I wanted to be doing. So I worked there for a year doing my internship there and just fell in love with the population. And I saw what it was like to work with individuals that wanted help. And I wanted to know what the other side of that looked like for individuals that weren't quite ready. And so I was lucky enough to land a job with Centro during their operations. And in doing that, that's where I met Val. And I was able to just kind of stay in the background and watch her do her work, her and Luke. And I immediately saw it and knew that that's what I wanted to do. That was my dream job. And I remember telling you, that's the job I want. And so then I had an opportunity to start an outreach team with Centro. And then Val came over and it was history. The rest is history.
Well, that's great. One thing that really I was impressed with is I got to know Morgan and Valerie very well during the winter storm that happened in February. I can't believe it's been that long ago, but it seems like yesterday, where of course, all of Texas got covered in really a bad winter storm, and we had to care for the homeless in downtown San Antonio. We actually have some pictures here of y'all working. This is Morgan driving around in the Corazon van, which we drove the night before, picking up people who were trying to escape from the snow or convince people not to be out in the elements that night before. I think it was just a few degrees in Texas. And really, you two went around and rescued lives. You saved lives by convincing people with compassion to shelter, not only at Travis Park Church, but at First Baptist Church, at Church Under the Bridge, at Life Restored Church, at Haven for Hope's temporary winter shelter. And you drove all around trying to get people the best thing possible. There's some of our good friends, Happy and Carolyn. And it's great that you were just compassionately getting people into warm weather. There is Valerie going around doing the same thing, getting people safe. And y'all did this for 10 days straight. You did this and kept people in the, warmth, and we're great. And that's where we got to know each other, living with each other, 3 people with another 60 to 100 each and every day. We serve 3 meals a day with our chef, who's actually cooking right now just below us for some people for our Wednesday night dinner. And we really got to know each other and just learned that some of the new things that we could do to serve the homeless, and some of the things we've done in the past that we haven't done because of COVID, are changes in the government. So we actually have a question that I think it will start out with. And if you have any questions, these are great. Keep them coming. Christina asked this: what has been the biggest challenge during COVID for outreach, and what can the community do to help during this time? One of y'all answered that. Thanks for the answer, Christina.
I think one of the biggest challenges is just getting creative with what we do and how we do it. At the beginning of COVID, everything kind of came to a screeching halt. Individuals that were used to getting their food out of trash cans or panhandling from tourists to make their money to feed their substance abuse disorders, that all came to a stop. So I remember in the very beginning, we had people that were, they're always in survival mode, but like far past that. They hadn't eaten and they weren't getting their fix. And so we had people that were actively withdrawing from their addictions, and it was a very crazy time. Haven closed their doors briefly. Intake was closed. All of the resources that we have readily available at our fingertips, which are still a struggle to use just in normal times, just because of how complex this homelessness system is, all of that came to a stop. So we really had to get creative as to how we were going to help people and get them connected to resources. And we continue to do that today, though more things are starting to open up. It's still a crazy process and cycle into getting people into the help that they're wanting in that moment. But I think just the community, all you can do is continue to donate to those organizations that are providing those resources. We're always in need. Those organizations are always needing that funding to keep our doors open, to keep things rolling for these individuals. Stop, talk to people, ask how you can help. We're always looking for volunteers. There's lots of ways to get involved, and to just make sure that we're putting the right energy into the right things to help these individuals.
And that's huge, Gavin, because I just want to say real quick on Morgan's topic right now, if you're watching this, please push the share button. It's not to promote, it just, we get so many calls and so many people asking or texts, I want to help. How can I help? And a lot of times, it's hard to put that in a nutshell. So if you share this video, I think people can listen into a little bit of a deeper level of awareness of where the needs are, what the needs are, and where to go about putting that energy into in a healthy way, in a fruitful way. So if you're watching, please share, because we might have some insight on that, and maybe broaden your perception on just homelessness in general.
No, that's great. And I really appreciate that, because we definitely seen a change in COVID. I think one of the biggest challenges I've seen, Christina, is that a lot of people lost their areas of comfort, right? They used to go inside to eat. They used to have places to have respite. We lost a lot of that because we had to serve outside, and that lasted for a while. But people, our homeless friends, are really dying to get back into safe places inside, to eat inside, to have community, and just find fellowship. And one thing I think after the long haul has been really hard to manage. But Christina says this, she says, thank you for all the time you're doing during the snowstorm. The community, I'm sure, cannot thank you enough. You guys are so amazing. Good job, you two. And we have a question from Don, and we're going to keep this, and this is good to start out with here tonight. Outreach is a term that some folks may not understand, which is true. Can you explain what outreach or street outreach is? What do you do, and why some clients need this versus just a homeless shelter or a place they can go for respite? What is street outreach at its core?
Oh.
Okay, go, Val.
To me, street outreach is actually physically going into the territory, the environment on a physical, mental, spiritual level of that person and meeting them where they're at. And you're coming to them. So you're really taking the time to learn and really compassionately connect with that person. That's why when you rode with us that first time, I can meet someone on the street and they start, and I'll listen and I'm like, you see their face change when you're just like, what's your name? Let's put all that aside. Like, I want to know your name, just outreach is outreach for a reason. Like there's people that have the capacity, the mental capacity, and the willingness to walk up to a facility like Haven or Salvation Army and say, hey, I need help. There are people out there that don't have that mental capacity. They don't even have that hope anymore. Outreach is someone who is equipped with those resources, with the knowledge of the fact that knowing that every situation of that person is going to be different, meaning their path is going to be different. You have to have those personal, it's so important to have those personal connections with hospitals, caseworkers, organizations. I mean, to be able to call that one person because that situation needs this resource or this connection in this moment. Like they're equipped with all of these things in their tool belts, from knowing and having relationships with PD to hospital, to just knowing that, okay, this person just needs like their hands washed right now, or they just need, like, did you eat today? You know, I mean, as an outreach worker, you have to be armed with so many things like, oh, this person is in a psychosis you can identify that this is a result of substance abuse in this moment. Maybe it's not the best time to engage, you know, and just continuing to observe and really learn that person and meet them where they're at. There's a lot more to it, but just having those tools on your tool belt as an outreach worker, it's a need, you know, because there are people out there that do not have the capacity to just even put their hand out. You have to go to them and pull them out and encourage them and bring them out, no matter how long or slow that process takes.
No, that's great. And I know both of you are people of faith. This is Pub Theology, so we're not on a city podcast. We're in a group of interfaith dialogues here at Pub Theology. All perspectives matter. We're interfaith. We let all different beliefs come together, believers or non-believers, but we want people to share about their faith, wherever that might be. And so for you too, how does your faith drive you to do the work you do? And not just the work you do, the way you do your work.
I mean, my faith is my saving grace. I could not wake up and go to work and see the things that I see and deal with on a daily basis without my faith. People ask me all the time or encourage me, to go, to talk about the things that we with and that we see, to go to counseling and go to therapy. And yes, those are all really great things, but honestly, my faith is the thing that saves me every day. 2 days ago, we had a female that jumped off a building, a homeless female that jumped off a building downtown. And as an outreach worker, we're the ones that recognize those individuals. So we have to step in to go and say, I know who this woman is. This is her name. And unfortunately, I'm able to recognize her. But, those are really traumatic things. We see a lot of really traumatic, horrible, sad, devastating things in these individuals' lives. And we're that beacon of hope. And so if I can use my faith and if God can speak through me to this individual to bring them closer to getting off the street, to bettering their situation, to reminding them that they have a purpose and that they're here for a reason, then that's what I'm going to do every day.
Valerie, what about you?
Absolutely. So my faith, I know it sounds cliche, is everything, but it's so personal. It's kind of like in the business of sales, like you can't sell what you don't believe in. So when I'm telling somebody, because God delivered me from these things, it's very rare that I come across a situation where I cannot personally relate to that person, whether they're homeless, whether they're going through substance abuse, mental health issues. I'm a pretty open book. I'm pretty open about my story and testimony because I want people to know that God saved me and delivered me. There's no doubt in my mind from those things, from those experiences. So when I get the opportunity, I'm not out there just shoving my faith down anybody's throat or anything, but there's definitely those moments where I can share my faith wholeheartedly with all the holy confidence in me and say, I know what that anxiety feels like. I know what it's like to be in a psych ward and think, I know what it's like to be high and not want to be high. I know what it's like to not have anywhere to sleep, and to say, but that's not the end of it. It doesn't have to be this way. Being able to wholeheartedly say that from a spiritual perception and working a huge part of my faith now, I get chills just saying it, is I'm not trying to sell Cam or anything. I'm genuinely saying this, like working with other believers that are, that believe in what I'm doing, that trust what I'm doing, and just continue to feed me basically so I can pour out into others. Quite frequently we find ourselves, and Morgan can second this, where I think I'm helping that person, but God's helping me through that person. I'm learning something from that person. It's a spiritual experience. And that's where, for me, the kingdom of heaven comes alive on earth. That's those moments, and it's very real. There's no doubt in my mind to that. I don't have to sell it. It just happens.
One thing that I always remind people, and you guys remind me of this better than anybody, is that most people's view of Jesus is that he's God incarnate, right? Like if you're a Christian, you believe that Jesus is, you could say the Son of God, or you can say God incarnate, the God in flesh, different ways to say it. God became man and he walked among us, right? And actually in Matthew 8:20, it says this. It says, the foxes have their dens and the birds have their nests. The Son of Man had no place to lay his head. Son of Man meaning Jesus. And, Jesus walked among in his 3 years of ministry. We know that he was kind of, in a way, homeless. The foxes and birds had better places to sleep than Jesus because he was going around. He was itinerant. He went around to town and relied on the graces of other people to do his ministry, to show them another way to live. And he walked among us. He felt our pain. He suffered along with us. And that's what you guys do each and every day. You walk around the streets of San Antonio. You walk around your campuses, and you help people. And you just don't give them something. You walk with them, and you take that journey of success with them. Like you might have to go with them physically to various places so they have a partner to get things done. And I know that we'll meet some people here. You have a guest we'll bring up here in a few minutes that you're walking along with very, very much. And but I do want to talk about this because we're on the topic of religion. We'll get back to the questions. Y'all have great questions coming up. Is that religion also is really thick in the homeless world, in the homeless community. There's a lot of churches and places of religion that tackle homelessness in different ways. Where have you seen, and this is theology, we talk about it, where have you seen religion kind of be a problem when it comes to serving the homeless? When has somebody's vigor or rules limited the success of maybe treating somebody for homelessness? Which one wants to take that question? Valerie can do it.
So again, we're just speaking from experience. We're not here to throw anybody under the bus or anything like that, but just from
you don't have to name names. You can just talk generally.
And I'm not. But yeah, so generally, I know one, especially from having those deep conversations, is sometimes like it's like my experience and knowledge and belief of Jesus is that there are no strings attached. His love is unconditional. So if you're telling me I'm homeless and I've got to go like do X, Y, and Z, meaning like sit through a ministry or sit or read a Bible verse or pray or whatever before I can get a meal, it kind of implies, well, there are strings attached. Like I do have to do this to get that, which, can operate in a healthy way in a certain level. But when it comes to involving, the word of God and what the word of God says, that can be very misleading and confusing to someone who is in a very tough situation, And so another, it's also hard when there are ministries who claim or represent, that they're faith-based. If there are those criteria that they have to meet, they get very defensive. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's the fault of the faith-based community or faith-based organization. It's just that they've already been burned by other organizations that aren't faith-based. So their perception, their walls are already up. You know what I mean? So, they're already looking through that filter of being judged, of not being good enough to go to that place, of not qualifying, So, I've had those conversations with some of our street family.
And we have to know that some people are going to find treatment through their spirituality. It's one of the 12 steps. And therefore, if their spirituality is different than Christianity, to find the right treatment for them, or you can say healing or success, there's probably different words, that we have to honor that, right? There's a person I know that comes to our place and he's not a Christian. He still comes, and we try to respect his beliefs so he can find the right peace of mind and the right healing as he progresses through his journey. And so that's kind of a recovery thing, right? Like if you're in recovery, and most people on the streets are in some form of recovery or need to be in recovery, and we have to honor that. So we can't have too much dogma involved in treatment, because we need to let people heal on their own ways in their own spiritual journey, wherever that might be. So good question about religion. We'll continue moving on because we have some great questions. Man, y'all win for the most questions this early on, I think.
Yes.
And Margaret asked, you mentioned the preconceived notions you had about the homeless community. What were some of the biggest changes in perception after your time doing outreach? What do you wish the larger San Antonio community understood about homelessness? Great question, Margaret.
Good. Yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you, Margaret. So that's a great question. So I guess before, and I'm a child of addicts. So I grew up around addiction my entire life. So I'm very familiar with that. But I guess before I actually went to Haven and got that firsthand experience, my idea of homelessness was that homeless individuals were lazy and that they just didn't want to work. And I had to go out there and work, and they just wanted to stand on the corner and panhandle, and they were lazy and dirty and smelly, and, you know, they were addicts, and that was it. And it wasn't until I went to Haven and I actually worked with that population, and I worked with doctors and lawyers and people that had just experienced a severe trauma or something happened in their life that brought them to this episode of homelessness. And it just quickly humanized them. You know, it reminded me that we're all one paycheck away from being homeless, or we're one tragedy or trauma away from being homeless if we don't have the tools to work through those traumas. And so I very quickly learned that homelessness can happen to anyone. And that was a very humbling experience for me. And so I see it every day in what I do. I work with really incredible individuals that have had very difficult, traumatic lives that nobody deserves to go through. And I learn from them every single day. So I wish the San Antonio community would understand that, again, homelessness can happen to anyone at any time, and that the homeless individuals out there did not pick this life. Something happened to them. They experienced something traumatic or challenging in their life that brought them here. And though they might look comfortable out there, that there's nothing comfortable about being hurting, and they need love and compassion the way that we all do.
No, that's great. You know, one thing you reminded me there, Morgan, is when I did the 40-day journey back in 2012, where I kind of experienced homelessness in different ways in San Antonio, at Haven for Hope, or under bridges, or actually outside this building here at Travis Park. Before I ever knew I was going to work there, I lived with a friend of mine at the bushes on Travis Street. And his name was Lewis Williams. He lives in Seattle now. And one thing that I realized is that if I would have written down a conversation at, let's say, the Prospects Courtyard at Haven for Hope, and I wrote down exactly what they said, I just scripted it out for you. And then I took out the names and the locations, so you couldn't tell where it was, but you could tell the theme of what they were talking about. And I went and actually recorded a conversation at Alamo Heights' football game in the parent section, and they're talking about the issues and the problems in life. And I took out the names and the locations, and I realized we're all the same conversations. The most surprising thing that I did in my 40 days is I had the same conversations that I would have with my friends, talking about broken relationships, about people, doing too many drugs or alcohol or pain and suffering, or they don't like their job, or they used to have a job. Same conversations. Just different locations and different means to treat those problems. And therefore, that we're actually mostly alike. That's this common humanity. Like, this is why humanizing homelessness is so important, because the differences are not that far apart. And I think we think they are by the images that we see, the areas of locations where they live, the poverty difference. But really, you're right. Most people are just few layers away from experiencing homelessness. So thank you for that conversation. We're going to continue moving on. So here's a good question. Any of the resources, organizations for people who want to get involved in any city, or advice of where to start looking? So that's good. Valerie.
Do you have any advice on organizations, resources? Absolutely. So that's a loaded question. With that being said, it's something that Morgan and I talked about that we wanted to touch on anyway. So again, when we get those questions just like this, a lot of people are like, I want to help. And in their minds, which is totally fine and definitely a need out there, they're like, I want to put together 1 million hygiene packs and give them, which is great. It's a need, right? But it's not a priority. It's not what's really going to get down to the long-term care solutions that some of our street need. Now, Morgan mentioned that, she realized that people are just a paycheck away, This is true about homelessness, but that's not necessarily the target homeless individuals that we are drawn to. I'm talking about from a spiritual level, that we are just like compassionately wanting to help. They're very sick individuals, whether it's substance abuse, mental health issues, to where they don't even know what day or time it is. And that's actually how I met Mickey, who asked that question right now this morning, helping an individual that sleeps next to a coffee shop where she works. And that is very mentally ill, that we've been trying to help forever. But with that being said, I think the best thing, resources and organizations are the ones who are really boots to the ground out there, getting those long-term placements and solutions, kind of what you saw this morning, Mickey, with us working with that individual. The organizations who are out there providing the case management solutions, the long-term solutions, continuing those relationships to make sure this is important, that they don't return to the street. That's a whole other world of a challenge and a need. So that's all I can say. There's great big organizations, there's small organizations, and that are doing, their purpose and everything. But there's also some other places that can really, and I'll just throw some out there because you asked specifically any resources or organizations who want to get involved. I'll say, of course, there's Haven for Hope, but our ministries are amazing. Obviously, we're out there doing the work. The investments that we put, whether they're monetary or donations, are fruitful. But like Sam's Ministries is out there really, these are my go-tos that I call as an outreach worker when someone is in need. I'm reaching out to Sam's Ministries. I'm reaching out to Endeavors. I'm reaching out to these case workers who I know are going to answer the phone and really give that client or person, individual, the need in that moment. I hope that helps, but it's a loaded question.
No, that's good. And there's Sam's website right there. We'll put Endeavors up soon. Endeavors and Sam were actually on a conversation I believe we had maybe a few months ago, which you can check out by going on the back button there and checking out all the past videos of Pup Theology, Sam Ministries, Endeavors in San Antonio. But if you want something nationally, you can go to endhomelessness.org. That's the National Alliance to End Homelessness. And you can see different organizations around the nation. You can learn facts about homelessness. You can learn about housing first. You can learn about all these different techniques about ending homelessness in a way. And that leads me to a question. There's a lot of different ways to treat and to tackle homelessness, to get people into a different stage in their life. And a few years ago, Haven for Hope was opened. It's a very large shelter in San Antonio, the largest by far. Before that, before Haven for Hope, we had various shelters. We had the Salvation Army, we had the Corazon Day Center, we had Grace Place. There was the San Antonio Rescue Mission. Some of these places still exist. Some of them didn't, because when Haven for Hope opened, a lot of the funding, or they asked these organizations to really support the Haven for Hope movement. And they really wanted to be a one-stop shop to end homelessness. Even Sam Ministries was a partner at the very beginning. Eventually, they pulled out to do their own thing because they couldn't make the partnership work. So what have y'all learned in this time of working together? What's the technique of really treating homelessness? Is it a one-stop shop model, or does it take a whole different recipe?
Just like raising a family, it takes a village. Haven for Hope is an incredible organization, and they do a lot of really amazing work for a lot of different people. But for the population that we work with on a daily basis, which is that chronic population. So one thing that we really like to tell people when we're trying to educate them on homelessness is that there's different types of homelessness. There is homelessness that's caused by, eviction or couldn't pay your rent and you've ended up on the street. The population that we work with on a daily basis, day in and day out, is not that population. Our population has been homeless for the last 10 years. This isn't an episode of homeless for them. It's a They have been homeless for such an extended period of time that they think that they are married to famous people or that they own buildings downtown. Their mental health has deteriorated so much to the point where they cannot take care of themselves. So for them, Haven for Hope is not the option. One of the requirements for Haven is that you have to be able to take care of yourself. Our population can't. Our population is covered in feces and urine, and they are missing limbs, and they're in wheelchairs, and they don't have the mental capacity to take care of themselves and to take those steps forward. So for them, that model just won't work. And that's okay, because that model works for a lot of different other people. But for the work that we're doing, we have to get diverse and we have to get creative with how we're going to help them, because we still want to help them, right? We can't just leave them there. We still want to give them the opportunity to change their life. And so we just have to get creative about it. So that looks like permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, nursing homes, group homes, assisted livings, psych wards, substance abuse treatment programs, detox, sober living. As outreach workers, that's what truly makes a successful outreach worker, is being able to have more than just Haven for Hope in your toolbox. If you only have that in your toolbox, you're not going to be able to help everybody that you come in contact with.
Yeah, one thing that kind of reminds me, and I say it different ways. I said it takes different pieces of the pie. Like Haven for Hope is a really important piece of the pie to succeed. It really helped Valerie. It helped other people. It really helped. And we don't want people to say like, oh, Haven for Hope. It's by far the premier agency in San Antonio. They do an amazing work. They treat homelessness in probably 10 different ways. Great counselors, great workers, Kenny and Molly. Molly's taking over. So congratulations, our friend Molly, for taking over the interim CEO of Haven for Hope. Do an amazing job. But this is a battle that we're in. We're fighting to really help people. You're kind of in this like peaceful war. We're not like actual violence is happening, but it's a battle and a war against homelessness. And when you treat a war, you just don't send in the Army. You just don't send in the Navy only. You have different skill sets. And so, Haven for Hope might be the Army, Corazon might be the Air Force, Cam might be the Navy. Who knows? I'm just saying those things. But it takes all different styles to treat and conquer homelessness in each individual. And the more people and the more angles, Centro in San Antonio, SA Hope Center, I'm going to start naming some that all are coming at it at different angles. And the more we come at it with different angles, the more we're going to succeed. If anybody says, if Corazon says we have the model, we're lying. Another great thing is what the Catholic Workers House, another great organization, is doing. They're going to be doing what Community First did in Austin. They're building 200 tiny homes in the deep east side of San Antonio. That's going to be a great community for a lot of different people experiencing homelessness, where they can have jobs on campus, they can have tiny homes, they can have shared kitchens and safe places to live. But that's only 200 people. It's going to treat a specific group of people. It takes all different types. So we're going to keep moving along because we have a lot of questions popping up. So Juliet has a really good personal question that I do want to get to. So she says, maybe this question is too hard. I don't think it is. It's a great question. But how do you maintain your own level of sanity, you two, being so near to suffering every day? How do you step into that and not fall apart?
We have each other.
Did you get a lump in your throat right now?
It's hard. We see, like I said earlier, we see a lot of traumatic, horrible things. We see the worst of the worst. We see people that have burnt every possible bridge with their loved ones and their family members. We have people that pass away out on the street and nobody to claim them. We see a lot of horrible things, but we see a lot of really incredible things too. And you have to find those little wins. People tell me all the time, they're like, how do you not just like get discouraged and give up and just not want to do this anymore? But you have to find your little wins. And there are a lot of them. Even if it's just finally convincing somebody that you've been working with for a year to take a shower, it's finding those little wins and little victories that are going to get you through it. Otherwise it is. And I tell people it's an uphill battle in a snowstorm with no socks or shoes on. And every hurdle that could possibly be thrown at you is going to be thrown at you. But we laugh, we cry, we smile, we get to love on these people. And that's what keeps it going.
I think a big part of like our relationship of just getting through the hard stuff is just laughing sometimes. I mean, when she gets spit at by a certain individual, I think it's the funniest thing in the world. And we have to make light of those things because of all the dark that we see. And every once in a while, like I got one today, I'll have a random person text me and just say, I saw what you did today. And it's not like this pat on the back for me. It's a reminder, like, okay, I remember there's light at the end of this, like, because I do lose hope. And, you know, when you open that shelter, Gavin, a lot of the individuals that we were able to get in there before that snowstorm hit, I had lost a lot of hope in. I just felt like we were never going to get anywhere. They were just off. Their reality is so far. And that really changed us. That whole situation changed us.
Yeah. No, that's true. And you got to have fun. And we're going to show a video here in a second of y'all having fun. And what else? Like, what do you do though? Like, what are the places you go to find healing when things get hard?
My favorite thing is, like, if I can get some worship in. I know it sounds cliche, but in more than you, I know through COVID, I had a friend invite me to a worship on Saturday, and I'm like so excited. Like, I feel like I'm going to the Bahamas or something to go like stand into worship. I'm a part of Amazing Church, but I'm on staff, so I run the nursery in the back, so I don't get to sit and worship, you know. So it's just little stuff like that. I you know, and I'm a single mom. I work 3 jobs, so I don't get a lot of time. My joy is in that, though, being able to have a second chance at life and being sober and having my boys back. You know, that's rewarding, I guess you can say. But we do, you know, to answer that very honestly, and I'll answer for Morgan. I think she's okay with me saying that we actually struggle with that. We don't find ourselves having a day off. On the days off, we're continuing relationships on those that we've placed, that we have lovingly grown relationships with, and that are family to us. We can't wait to introduce you guys to our guest, our surprise guest. But you know, time off, we find ourselves doing that, honestly, and that's why I love what we're able to do now and the organizations we work with, because that's not considered crossing a boundary. It's a need, and I think that that's a conversation that needs to be had, that, you know, maybe we do need to cross boundaries with some of the homeless where other places might say their boundaries. Maybe those do need to be crossed, and that expands the, you know, the opportunities and the light at the end of that, you know. So thanks for
that's good. And
got us all
that's a good. That was deep. No, here's a great clip of something you did, and to keep our sanity during the 10 days. Morgan brought over one of those dinosaur blow up suits that you see during Halloween.
I didn't. Val did.
That's my baby.
Oh, sorry, Val did. I'm so sorry. And they put me in it, and this is us going around telling people to wear masks and that lunch is ready, or to fill out some forms. I can't remember exactly, but here it is. We'll watch it.
Yeah, it looked like what's his name?
That was our friend Neville, and we went around and we served food and had a good time, and it was a huge hit. I didn't think it was going to be that well received, but we did have fun. And again, that's what we like to do, especially at Corazon, serving hospitality the way we do inside and serving meals. We really want to just create a dynamic of fun, so that therefore, when we have hard conversations with our guests, they can go maybe a little better. So we got some other questions here that I want to get to. And Patty asked this: what options does a homeless person who is injured have when they discharge from the hospital and still needs assistance if they aren't independent enough for Haven for Hope? COVID has limited resources from what I hear. So what do you do for people who are discharged from the hospital, which is a big thing?
Yeah, and more. Yeah, we can both. That's so important that she brought that up, because that's a big part, and that's what makes a successful outreach worker, having those strong relationships with caseworkers, social workers, not only in hospitals but in the ER. I can't tell you how challenging of a system it is to work in, just in general. So our clients, again, the population we specifically are drawn to, keep going in circles in the system. They keep getting ED'd, which is emergency detained. They keep going into the ER for medical reasons, and they just keep getting kicked right back out on the street. Well, Morgan and I intentionally try to hook them while they're in that state where they're a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more open, a little bit more willing to make that next step. So it's hard because a lot of the population we work with, like Morgan said, cannot reach their ADLs, which is their daily living skills, being able to take care of themselves to be able to go to certain facilities. So we do have to get creative. So we have put a lot of energy into building relationships with like those caseworkers, with those nursing homes, because there's so many barriers. I wish we could just walk you through just one case, like one story of what those hurdles and barriers look like. Does this person have benefits? Do they have insurance? Do they have, are they documented? Like any of those things that they're going to need, how much are they getting? You know, those barriers have to be broken down, right? Like it just,
yeah. And I think the one of the hardest things, which isn't necessarily what anybody wants to hear, but to that question, is that there's nothing we can do. A lot of times, sometimes if we're able to catch it early enough, and that person does meet X, Y, and Z, and by some miracle they have funding and they have Medicaid and they have all these things, then yeah, we can work with the social workers and place them in a nursing home so that they don't return to the street. But the sad reality is that most of the time that doesn't happen, and they do end up back on the street. And we're not going to stop there. We're going to meet them on the street. And, you know, Val has an incredible story about a woman that she helped. And sometimes that's, you know, her changing bandages on the street. It's us stepping up as those workers and taking off that outreach worker hat and that case management hat. We're nurses and we're moms.
Like, we're literally
parents
doing that. We're literally like, I changed her bandage in the bathroom of Main Plaza every morning for I don't know how long, because she got her leg amputated, and in her mind, you know, because she was bleeding out, and so to answer that question too, like Morgan said, unfortunately there really isn't a place like that. And that's why we both feel drawn, and we have a plan that we're going to open our own place one day, and I'm going to live there. This place is going to be for specifically those individuals who keep going in circles in the system, who keep falling through the cracks. The ones that I just want to grab now and just bring home with me now and just be like, I just want to, you know, but we will one day have a place. It might not be to the capacity of Haven or anything like that, but those individuals that Patty is probably referring to that are in hospitals that keep getting kicked out to the streets can safely come, that they'll get the care that they need.
That's great. And we got some people who love Neville. Mickey said, "Oh my gosh, there was Neville. Neville lives in downtown San Antonio." You might.
Morning. We got
to do that. We're going to introduce one of your friends, but we're going to play another video while you go get your friends. This is a 14-second video, so it's not very long, but it is one of the nights that we served dinner toward the end of the shelter when people were getting to know each other really well. And our chef Robbie filmed this from a different angle, and I didn't even know he was filming it. Robbie was having a really tough time. He had to operate normally he serves one meal a day. During the shelter, he had to do 3 meals a day, and we were stuck in downtown, and we didn't have a lot of resources, and we had to build a relationship with restaurants and try to get people to donate food when they couldn't even drive to downtown. But one night we made it all happen, and we were serving really great food provided by Robbie and I think the Good Kind restaurant, Good Kind, which is in Southtown. Chef Tim came and helped us out, and this was the night, and it's a pretty fun video.
This music is really putting like the night over the top, I think.
Look at Neville go.
Yeah! Woo!
That's right. It was a fun night. We had kind of a hoedown, and
I want to go back. I wish.
I know. I wish. Which we have plans in the future to do more of that stuff. We'll talk about it when all of it's set. But we do. It made us realize what we could do more of in downtown San Antonio to provide more constant respite care for our friends. Valerie and Morgan, can you introduce your friend with us live here on Pub Theology?
So we have a surprise guest, and Morgan and I were just talking. We thought who better and more important and more amazing for our guest to be someone who has overcome homelessness, who has absolutely become genuine family to us, and who has also overcome things like substance abuse and still overcoming mental health. So this is Bradley.
Hello, Bradley. Good to see you, my friend. We went to the rodeo together, Bradley, briefly.
Yeah, I remember it.
Good to see you.
So a lot of people are asking us a lot of questions. Remember earlier we're going to talk about how we can maybe help others who are still homeless like you were.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember being homeless?
Yeah.
What do you remember?
I just remember I was living on the streets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You remember what that was like?
Oh, it's cold, man. It's
Yeah, it's
cold.
outside.
Yeah, and it's very dangerous. People will attack.
I got a
Huh?
question. I got a question for you. What does the work of Valerie and Morgan mean to you? What are these two amazing women? What have they done for you, and how did it change your life?
They they accepted me as a person and care about me. They care about me.
That's good. We won't ask you who you like the most. You said you like them equally, like a good friend should say. But Bradley, tell us, where are you from?
I'm from Corpus Christi.
And when did you come to San Antonio?
My cousins live here. When I came to San Antonio when I got a head injury. I have a brain injury.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then and is that injury, that the results of that injury, do you think that's what led you to on the streets of San Antonio?
Yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I do because I was married. I was married and my daughter brought me to San Antonio and they found me.
Mm. And what were the challenges of this added onto it? What were the challenges that you had to face early on when you were homelessness? What were the toughest parts about it?
Sleeping on the streets under boxes and stuff.
Yeah, not having shelter.
Yeah. And it's better to live in a border. It's better to live in a shelter than it is out in the streets because you're really not missing nothing.
Was it hard to see how people treated you differently? Did people treat you differently once they realized you were homeless versus not homeless, maybe when you were in Corpus Christi? Was that hard, how people treated you differently?
Yeah. They treat you with more acceptance as a person when you don't do drugs because they can tell when you're doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They could tell when something ain't right as a whole.
Yeah, and they treat you with less compassion and empathy, and creates a more bigger divide.
Yeah.
All right, Morgan and Valerie, tell us how you got to know Bradley.
So we met Bradley just walking the streets. You know, people ask every day, what does your
Yeah.
day look like?
I'm gonna take him back.
Okay.
Okay,
Bye, Brad.
Bye.
Yeah, tell him a little.
good to see you, Bradley.
Yeah,
I love you too, man.
I love you.
we met Bradley on the street. So people ask all the time, what does your day look like? And so we literally walk, you know, we walk, we drive, and that's how we met Bradley. I think Val said the first time that she ran into him, he was standing in a trash can.
Sitting in a trash can inside of it.
And we started talking to him, and you know, originally he looks pretty scary, you know, when you first see him on the street. But when you start talking to him and you realize his childlike demeanor and mentality, your heart just softens for him. And so he's like a young kid in a 46-year-old man's body. And so we just fell in love. You know, we started talking to him and getting to know him and who he was and why he was the way he was. And you know, he has a lot of trauma. A lot of people have hurt him. A lot of people have hurt him financially, emotionally, physically. He has a lot of trauma that he never worked through. And so we've just been, over the last couple of years, we've been able to love on him and care for him and give him that loving, caring environment the way that so many of our individuals need. And we've really seen the transformation in him. And so he comes to meals with us. We take him out to eat. We share Thanksgiving and Christmas with him. He truly is a part of our family. We see him on the weekends, and we just love for him and care for him like he's
and
one
this
of
is
ours.
how, and I have to throw this in because this is how God works in and through us. And this is huge glory to God. We lost him for a little while. And a big part of our frustration or anger was he was getting taken advantage of and abused by certain people, like with his funding being taken, and then getting dumped in areas, just left and abandoned homes, like where APS would find him covered and just really bad. I was en route one day from Dallas, Texas with my sister. We hadn't seen him, right? We had just heard he went.
We hadn't seen him in like 3 months.
We hadn't seen him in 3 months. And usually we were able to find him, check in on him or whatever. And I was en route with my sister to San Antonio. We stopped at a random, not a busy gas station or anything like that, a random gas station, a very small gas station. And I'm standing there and all of a sudden Bradley walks right next to me, walks right up, like past me. And it was just like, it was at nighttime. I mean, what are the odds? And he was en route back to San Antonio. This individual was actually en route to come and basically dump him back on the streets. So it was by God's grace that we had that divine intervention, an appointment to where I was able to connect with him. And the second he got back in town, we started working on keeping him off the street and stayed connected ever since. That was not a coincidence that I ran into him.
No, amen. That's how it happens. Authentic relationships and transformations, which leads me to the question I'm going to answer for Melody. One of the biggest struggles with the church or church, not church group wanting to help is that they decide how they want to help, whether it's a social group, I think you're saying, or a church group, what feels good to them, instead of asking an organization that is in the trenches day in and day out of what people they serve the most. So the question I get a lot when I go and speak about our unhoused neighbors, and I love to say unhoused neighbors, homelessness is something that we have to say because it's a very common word, but we really believe that a lot of people can find homes in different ways. And they're really just unsheltered, unhoused, right? But that vernacular sometimes gets caught up. But one thing when I speak about this, I think when I take question and answers at the end of my talk, and if we took it today, it'd probably be one of the questions of like, what can we do, right? Like, what can our group, what can our Rotary Club do? What can our Lions Club do? What can our youth group do, church group do? And I think they want me to say, oh, we want you to serve in our soup kitchen, even though we may not have a soup kitchen like we do a regular kitchen. But like they want us to say, oh, come serve food or come donate food or come donate clothes, which is great. Like those are all good things. But really what I love to say to them, Melody, is why don't you come and get a group of leaders? I mean, if the Rotarians, they're business leaders, they know how to have jobs and they know how to get people jobs and they're really talented people, right? And I say, I don't really care if you serve food. I don't care if you provide the food. Food we get from the food bank is amazing. It's well priced, and we can get that pretty easily. That's why you donate to the food bank in San Antonio. But one thing that I always struggle when I ask them to do this, they just look at me like, no, we don't want to do that. Is I say, why don't you come and eat with our guests, with our clients, with the unhoused, with the homeless, and have a meal with them. And they're like, oh, no, that would be a waste of food. Or they'd say like that. And I'm like, no, I will double the food if that happens. Food is cheap. Conversations are not cheap. And transformation really happens, Melanie, when you can get a group of people to come down to Corazon or CAM or SA Hope Center or Haven for Hope or SAM Ministries or the many places that do this, Catholic Workers House, Endeavors. And you actually sit down and eat with a meal with somebody, get to know their name, and that's when transformation can happen. One, Patty Radel reminded me of this, who runs an amazing organization called Inner City Development on the west side of San Antonio, and they provide sandwiches to the homeless in the west side. And she always has somebody there to hand the sandwich and eat with them. And they say the most important thing you can do is you hand a sandwich to somebody is eat another sandwich with them. And so when we always pass it out, somebody is there to eat with them. And people do this all the time. Oh, I want to pass out these things, these gift bags in my car. I say, well, if you're going to hand somebody a sandwich, spend some time with them. And that time commitment's tough. It shows our vulnerability. It makes us be committed to time, and it's hard, right? We're busy people. But transformation, if people really ask me, what do we really want you to do? I'd say, come on and eat with us. And I guarantee you that would have the most lasting impact. All of y'all become street outreach workers. Trinity University did a case study of San Antonio about 10 years ago, and they interviewed me and Haven for Hope, and they interviewed a bunch of people. And they said, y'all really do a good job counseling and sheltering and case management. Y'all do a pretty good job. That's level 2 or 3 or 4 trauma. What San Antonio lacks the most is level 1 trauma care, where our citizens become street outreach workers. And if our citizens can become street outreach workers, then then we can transform lives. But that takes knowing people's names, eating sandwiches with them, building relationships, having the city provide the right type of street outreach workers to these people, the city designing their laws to be more acceptable to people experiencing extreme poverty. And therefore, then we can take that to level 2, 3, 4 trauma care when the time is right. But if we can't get to level 2 if you don't have level 1, and you guys are the start of that. And our citizens, Melody, you guys can even do a better, like not you, but the whole city, we can do a better job realizing that we are too part of the solution. So that's my answer to you, Melody. So we're about to close our time here, but I want to give Valerie and Morgan one last remark. Rex says, there it is. Rex, thank you both for your efforts to educate and bring a wellness to the people you serve. Rex, thank you for you. That's Sam Ministries. Look, we're gonna put it right there. Rex works for sam.org, SAMM.org. Rex is an amazing street outreach worker that works usually outside of downtown San Antonio, and they go to encampments that they find all over the place. One of them was actually under this really big kind of tunnel, and Sam went out there to treat those in pockets of all over San Antonio. Encampments exist, and Rex tackles that with great compassion with the team of Sam Ministries. We can't wait to partner with you, Sam. Just found out that today. So some exciting things are on the horizon. Morgan and Valerie, concluding remarks. We'll start with Valerie.
My last
Any
remark.
lasting thoughts for today? What are you going to give to what do you want us to hear about what you do and what we need to do?
I think that people just need to kind of just take a step back and really think. This is my perception. I'm a mother of 2 boys. I would do anything for my boys. I treat an unsheltered individual or someone I'm working with on the street as if they were my own son. I'm not going to walk away from him if there's a need. I'm not going to come and, again, I know people's hearts are in the right places, but I'm not going to come drop off a box of onions to him. Like, we have people doing that to the encampment across the street. I'm genuinely going to think about, okay, what does this person need? And you know what? I can't fill that need. That's okay. I'm going to refer them or get them connected to the organizations that are. So it's in my heart for people to broaden, sometimes there's a book that my boss talks about all the time, when helping hurts. Sometimes as, with my teenagers, I have to step back or I have to be that tough parent and give them that tough love. And that's okay, so I really want people to understand that, their heart, I know people's hearts are in the right places, but go to the people who really understand homelessness. Rex, who was just on, he is so knowledgeable, and I have so much respect for him for direction. I work for an organization. I'm not trying to sell my organization. I'm just telling you truth. Like my boss, my president, was the first one out there with me in the storm. How crazy is that? She's the first one out there across the street in that encampment if something needs to be addressed in a healthy way. You know what I mean? These are organizations that are really putting in the work, and that's where you can invest your energy into. So I take that approach and treat them the same way I would treat my family. I consider that before I take action. If that makes sense.
Morgan, what about you?
I think the biggest piece that I would want to leave people with is just humble yourself. Humble yourself and put yourself, recognize that you don't have all the answers, and that's okay. And neither do we. As outreach workers, we learn every day. We're constantly asking for help from other experts.
Very true.
Humble yourself and recognize, okay, I don't have all the answers and I don't know how I'm going to help this person. But at the same time, I'm going to humble myself and I'm going to talk to them and I'm going to ask them how I can help. My name is Morgan. What's your name? How can I help you? What can I do for you? Just asking that simple question will open a million doors. It's very easy to turn a blind eye and to look the other way. And at the other end of the spectrum, it's very easy to go down and hand out a box of prom dresses to people that you think just need something. It's a large spectrum. So humble yourself in both aspects, in both respects. Ask us how, for advice or how we can help. And if we all just communicate and truly go to the agencies that are offering the help
Communication, yes.
and communicate, then we can make a
Communication.
difference.
That's great. Guys, thank you so much for being with us today.
Hey, we have a gift for you. Your gift that we still haven't given to you. We
my gosh.
made you a collage of all the pictures of some moments we had in the shelter. Can you see it?
I can. That means a lot to me. I'll hang it right here.
It's
Hang it right here. Oh, I will do it. Thank you so much, guys. Again, thank you, Valerie and Morgan, for joining us. Christian Assistant Ministries, Corazon San Antonio, all the other groups that we can mention. But if you want to donate, we always need help. You can go to any of those websites, Christian Assistant Ministries, Corazon San Antonio, and you can give in various ways. And giving is really important. If you, that's the best way for you to give. But also, we want to have you down to eat a sandwich with us. I'd rather you not pay us $5. Get down in your car and come eat a sandwich at CAM or at Corazon or at our homeless hub that is right now this homeless hub that operates during COVID. It's kind of a resource hub that the city of San Antonio has partnered with Corazon, with Centro. CAM sends clients down there for ID recovery, and it's just kind of a partnership in downtown. So when we're all back in person in our various campuses, we'll have a big party. So thank you so much for coming and reminding us that we don't have the answers, that we need to humble ourselves and find a solution and be different agents of change in this world. Thank you for coming on Pup Theology. Again, next week, we'll be back. We're going to be at Hopscotch Museum right across the street, filming a great Pup Theology with Saint City Culinary and Herd. There are two organizations in one, Saint City Culinary and Herd. And they reach out and serve those in their restaurant and hospitality and bar establishments. So industry workers who a lot of the times are low income, that don't have health insurance, they don't have mental health care awareness. The addiction rate for the people in industry worker is way high. And they go out and provide mental health care and support services and ways to find insurance to those in the industry. Some great teams here in San Antonio. They have offices in Austin and all over the nation, really, but started here in San Antonio. Joel Rivas is a good friend of mine. He'll be joining us from Hopscotch across the street, one of our establishments and restaurants and bars in downtown. So that's tomorrow. That's next week, not tomorrow. That's next week at Pup Theology at 7:00. Thank you, Valerie and Morgan, for joining us. Again, have a blessed Wednesday, and we'll see you guys soon. You guys can stay on. We're going to say bye to the audience. Have a great day.